I just had the needle. Where in the world did that go? Oh, there it is. Welcome to the Craft Economy, where I work and we learn. Today I am fixing a few hems and seams, and we are talking about inflation. Did you know that inflation is not accidental? It's not a byproduct. It's not something that happens, oh, it just happens, nothing we can do about it. No. It can happen intentionally. Government uses it as a tool to boost or hinder the economy. They use it to make their debts easier to handle. They use it for, I want to say, a lot of personal reasons. So the federal government uses inflation as a tool. So how do they even do that? Well, it starts in the Federal Reserve. That is, supposedly it's outside of the president's reach. Like, he can't be in charge of the reserve. He can't give instructions to the head of the reserve. But he does get to nominate. And when a Republican president nominates a new head of Federal Reserve, and your House and Senate are also predominantly Republican, it's the same thing. So Trump's going to get to appoint a new one. And what he wants to do, because he wants to lower rates. And at first that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Sounds wonderful to lower the rates. Oh my gosh, make everything affordable again. Well, the problem is that's kind of the point. They're not fixing inflation. They're not fixing the income problem. They're just putting a Band-Aid on it and giving you more credit, more reasonable rates in order for you to go spend money that you don't have. So that's the underlying issue that we're in. Because it doesn't fix the fact that we're still not making enough money for the level of inflation that we're having, but we're going into more debt. Like, do you see the problem here? Anyway. So inflation is a tool for the government to make the economy look like it's booming. It makes everybody feel a lot more secure. It makes it look like a better investment of a government to be able to post increases. Well, we sold this many more dollars. We earned this many more dollars. We did this many more dollars. Without really, going into the nuts and bolts of, well, once you take inflation into account of it, because why would we do that? It looks so much better when we just ignore that fact. Get in there. So people who have faith in the economy, because on the outside it looks like it's doing fantastic, and people who also just got access to more affordable with credit lines, go spend money. It pushes the economy. The fact that we're spending money that doesn't actually exist is beside the point, but bottom lines look good. We like how numbers look when they're big. We don't care about the reality of them. The federal government will also use inflation to make their national debt more manageable. And how that works is pretty straightforward, honestly. If you have $10 of debt, you're looking at your $1 going, I owe you $1 a month. It takes 10 months to pay this off. But if the dollar inflates and your $1 is now $2, it now takes 5 months to pay that off. If your dollar inflates further, then it takes even less time to pay it off. So the federal government will use inflation as a tool to make their own national debts more manageable. Because the thing is, they get a cheat code. They don't have to raise the minimum wage for the federal government. They just have to keep charging the same percentage they have been charging. Keep bringing in the same percentages of your wages that they have been charging. Because first of all, they don't even care about whether or not our federal taxes are going to be able to pay any of their debt. It's pretty obvious. Like, I don't think this is a political statement. I don't think this is contentious in any way. It's pretty obvious that they're pretty content with just spending money. Not really worried about where it comes from or the fallout. But hey, we're spending money. We got programs. We have war. Yay. Anyway, so they still have federal taxes coming in. They still just borrow and spend whatever the hell they want to. Reality is, I guess, optional when you have enough power. But that means for us, we're not getting an increase. We can't go into more debt. The government can continue to borrow as much money as it wants to. It can release bonds. It can borrow from other countries. It can sell assets. It can loan or borrow against assets. The reason that they want the dollar to go up is because they're looking at the GDP, the ratio, the percentage. What is our debt in relation to the GDP, which is what the measurement of how profitable a country's economic system is. If our GDP for the year is $1,000, you don't want your debt to be $1,500, you want your debt to be less than $1,000. That way your country is on the positive side. So the easy fix is, if you're $1,500 in debt, but your country only has $1,000, put a Band-Aid on it. Raise your inflation. Now your $1,000 is $1,500. That way your debt isn't as bad as it was. Because other countries won't take your country seriously and they won't have faith in your dollar, which you want. You want other countries to have faith in your dollar. Because for some reason America's really stuck on us having like the dollar of choice for the world. But they won't have faith in your dollar if your dollar is on the negative side of your debt to GDP ratio. It's the same concept as when you go to get a loan and they look at, well, how much debt do you have compared to how much income you have? If you have too much debt compared to your income, then they don't want to loan you money. This is the same way with other countries in America. They don't want to do business with someone who's in that level of debt. It's not a good investment. And America wants to be seen as a good investment. So what we do? We create inflation. We artificially stimulate inflation to make the dollar bigger. And you're like, well, how does that even work? Well, easy. Federal Reserve rates. So if the Federal Reserve lowers rates and everyone starts spending again, it pushes the dollar. It increases economic movement. It creates activity. The activity is what creates inflation as a byproduct. Based on you have more money, so you're willing to spend a little bit more money, so you start spending a little more on something because you have the ability to, and it's not that big a deal. Rates are really good right now. Economy's booming. Look at that. We're in a good position. So you spend a little bit more, and the dollar starts to go a little bit less. The more that we spend on a gallon of milk, it goes from, well, it was $2, but I'm willing to spend $2.50. The value of that milk is now $2.50. Being able to get that amount for it has caused a micro level of inflation. And they will continue to do this because inflation doesn't increase when people pull back their spending, when they're more frugal, when they make more financially responsible decisions. I'm not going to buy milk for $2.50 if it's only worth $2 because right now I don't have the credit, I don't have the income, I don't have the money for it. The economy doesn't look that great right now. I'm going to be responsible and choose to only spend within my means, and that means that I'm not going to pay above standard value for something like I would if I had lots of credit. Like I would if I thought the economy was doing well and I'd be able to pay it off. Like I would if I had faith in our system. When the faith is gone, when the rates are high and you don't have the credit you had available, inflation takes a hit. So historically what our government will do is raise rates and stem the inflation. If they want to create inflation, they will lower rates. And they'll market it as a good thing. Well, we're lowering rates. You guys can have more money. They're not giving you more money. They're loaning you more money that they will come back and say later that you owe me with interest and without higher wages. So saying that they're lowering rates sounds so good. It makes such an immediate change. The economy starts moving again. Because our federal government isn't concerned about long-term issues. They're only concerned about the next election. They're concerned about short-term approval numbers. They're concerned about themselves right now. Because we have one major flaw to our democracy is that our politicians are elected, which means they have to be likable, more likable at least than their counterparts or than their competition. What that means for us, they say crap they don't mean and make promises they don't intend to keep. So I'm lowering rates. you shouldn't go spend when you have more credit, but that's just kind of what Americans do. We've been conditioned, trained since birth that as long as you have credit for it, then yeah, you can afford it. Terrible habit to get into, by the way, but we're here. That's what it is. So I have credit, I'm gonna go spend it. Economy starts moving, inflation starts rising, and the GDP suddenly looks a lot bigger than it did this time last year. Dang it, I can't. I'm gonna nod in it. How did I get a nod in this? And it looks like the economy is recovering, but it's really all smoke and mirrors and misdirection. They have you looking one way when they're moving money in another place. So Kevin Marsh, who Trump wants to appoint to the head of the Federal Reserve, wants to lower rates. And we just discussed why that's a bad thing, because we're already upside down. Like, we're already spending more money than we have, and that's not a opinion, that's just where the numbers are sitting. The majority of America is currently spending money that they don't possess. And honestly, most of it's going towards essentials. Up to half of credit card usage in the past year has started going to essentials like groceries, utilities. People don't have the spare money. So what they're hoping is that if they produce the image of a moving economy, that people will start spending again. Spending will raise inflation, and then Trump's numbers will start looking a lot better, a lot faster than they would if he actually put in effort to try and heal the economy, which we're not interested in. Why would we do that? Kevin Marsh wants to do some finagling with the assets and the money that the Federal Reserve has to basically make inflation not go skyrocket overnight. Like, they don't want it to just balloon overnight because that causes a panic. They want it to happen on their terms, but they still want inflation. This is what they're pushing. They're trying to get it there. And the reason that we can't raise rates right now in order to stop the inflation is, well, first of all, nobody has a political interest in making the economy not look like it's moving. But second of all, we don't really have it. We can't. Americans are already strapped. They're at their maximum. We are failing. We are in the most debt we've ever had. We're in the most delinquency we've ever had. We're in the most bankruptcy we've ever had. We're in the highest loans we've ever had. We're in everything. It's all maxed out. There's no more give in the system. If we don't have credit, then we have nothing. If we don't have credit, then we have no money to spend. The federal government hasn't bothered to make sure that wages rise with this inflation, which would have been a secure fix for it. But they're too busy draining the middle and lower class dry. What inflation does is it makes your savings account nullified. If your savings account isn't moving higher than the rate of inflation, which they haven't been for the past, 2 decades, then you're losing money by saving money. As backwards as that sounds. So where does that money go? Well, the government gets to absorb that difference. They get to absorb the 1% difference between your savings rate and your inflation rate. So now the middle class that's been told their entire, middle and lower class that have been told their entire lives that the way you get ahead is by saving money are now behind. And the only people who benefit are the ones that have assets. They have stocks, they have businesses, they have rental properties. These, ow. They have assets. Businesses, rental properties, they have stocks, they have assets that are currently bringing in income because sales inflate, because value inflates. Savings accounts don't. You have been preyed upon by a system that intentionally, systematically robs you of your wealth. Because the biggest piece, the biggest asset that a middle-class person had access to was buying a house. Because houses appreciate, don't they? Everybody can buy a house, right? It's so easy. They're so accessible. So as inflation rises and housing prices rise, but wages don't rise, you now have a whole lot of people in your country that can't afford the only profitable asset that was ever available to them to begin with. They are draining the middle class. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not making these grand statements. There is evidence. The middle class is shrinking. That's not even a contest. It's disappearing. Did you know that half of America is now the lower class? Did you know that half of all American citizens only own 2.5% of all the wealth in the country? Half of America has to fight for the bottom 2 crumbs. And this is not an accident. This is an intentional, designed system working exactly as it's supposed to. So like and subscribe. I am doing my best to get this information to the average American because we have not been taught this. We were intentionally kept ignorant of how all of this works, to the point that when they say we're lowering rates, we start cheering and think that they're a national hero. We are being taught, we are being manipulated, we are being brainwashed. So if you came here looking for some clarity and you found some, go ahead and follow. It's not very pretty on the inside, but looks pretty good on the outside.